This is an emergency civil war alert. Seems like we have these almost every day now. I'm going to show you in this video what's happening. We are collapsing into civil war. The left is now calling for kill teams, mass executions and assassinations while they're targeting U.S. senators with doxing campaigns out of congressional computers from the House of Representatives. Embedded left-wing radicals, I don't know what you call them, terrorists, who are in the deep state now. They're in the DOJ, they're in the FBI, they're in the House, they're in Congress. They are now working in a way that's complicit with the hysteria-pushing left-wing media to push these left-wing radical activists to violence. And this violence will soon spill into the streets. There will be blood in the streets. And I am very, very concerned. That's why I'm filming this today. I'm very concerned that United States senators are likely to be targeted by these radical leftists. For example, remember that encounter with Senator Ted Cruz the other day where these radical leftists were screaming at Senator Cruz in a public restaurant in D.C. And you could tell that these left-wing activists, they're deranged. They're lunatics at this point. They need to be, sent to, I don't know, an insane asylum or something. But that was just a verbal altercation. My fear is that this is now going to escalate to left-wing people attempting to stab senators, such as Senator Cruz. And by the way, Senator Cruz is very crucial for us here in Texas. We need Cruz to defeat Beto because we cannot have an open borders policy, which is what the left wants, which would just sweep through Texas and destroy our state and destroy our Second Amendment, destroy our ability to even defend ourselves. We need to have Senator Cruz safe, but all U.S. senators need to be safe. Violence is not the way to solve problems, but the left is becoming increasingly desperate and they're resorting to violence. So my fears are that they're going to target U.S. Supreme Court justices who are conservative and that they are going to target U.S. senators and other prominent conservatives, including conservative speakers, radio hosts such as Sean Hannity, Rush Limbaugh, Michael Savage, Alex Jones, you name it. My fear is that all these individuals are going to be targeted with kill teams and assassination squads. And in this video, I'm going to show you left-wing radicals discussing these types of activities in their own words. And they're doing it on Twitter. And Twitter refuses to ban them so far. And this is another problem here. The tech giants have decided to support left-wing terrorism while they are selectively censoring conservative voices. So I've been banned and deplatformed off of YouTube for many, many months, shadow banned on Facebook, practically delisted on Google and other things, while these radical left-wing terrorists are given, top rankings, top visibility. They have no problem getting their content shared on Facebook and YouTube and even Twitter. These tech giants are complicit. These tech giants are, and I've said it before, they are, and listen to me carefully, these tech giants are enemy combatants. They're enemies of America. They are actively and deliberately working with radical left-wing domestic terrorist groups. And in today's video, I'm going to prove that to you by reading the words from these left-wing groups as they discuss these terror plots and how to kill people on Twitter, and they don't get banned from Twitter. It's just incredible. So for all the links of this, go to naturalnews.com. And the story there is called Civil War Alert. Leftists openly plot mass executions of conservatives as Democrats release home addresses of Republican senators. Check out that story. That's what I'm really going to explain to you here in more detail. And by the way, just as a background, if you're not familiar with my work, my background is I'm actually a food scientist. I'm a published food scientist. I run an analytical laboratory. I'm in favor of food freedom and health freedom. That's why I'm called the Health Ranger. My background is about health and nutrition and preventing disease and so on. But I got into the science, and I'm also, of course, an American. I'm a patriot. I'm pro-liberty. I'm a Texan. And I just can't I can't sit around and do nothing while our country is being destroyed by these radical left-wing communists. My wife is an immigrant. Her family fled communist China. My wife is Taiwanese. And her family escaped the communists and fled to Taiwan. I've never even really talked about that before, but my wife is an immigrant who came to America, 30 years ago. And so we know firsthand how dangerous communism is and the slaughter of what happened in the Cultural Revolution in China in the late 1940s, around 49 and 50. And we know that history has been down this road before, and it is very dangerous. And we see the radical left in America today following in the footsteps of communist China and their Cultural Revolution takeover, the mass murders they carried out, mass executions, door to door, dragging people out of their homes, killing them. That's what happened in China, and that's why China is a communist regime today. With illegal government kidnappings and organ harvesting of people, that's China today. And we cannot let that happen in America, and that's why I'm speaking out. That's why I'm doing these videos, even though I'm attacked, I'm blacklisted, I'm defamed everywhere with the same kind of lies that are used to attack every other prominent pro-freedom person who's trying to defend this country. So that's why I'm doing this, in case you're curious. And also, in the interest of full disclosure, I have a show that airs once a week on the InfoWars network, and I'm a frequent guest with Alex Jones at Infowars.com because of my analysis of what's going on. And people have tried to, they try to turn me against Alex Jones. They threatened me. They offered me money. They try to, they try to get me to turn publicly against Alex Jones, which I refuse to do. And when I refuse to do that, Google blacklisted my website for 6 days as a warning. So I know firsthand what Brett Kavanaugh knows and President Trump knows, which is that there is a deep state network that involves Google, Facebook, and Twitter, and traitors inside the FBI and traitors inside the DOJ and traitors in the left-wing media, and they all coordinate together to smear, threaten, intimidate, and shut down anyone who is supporting America. And that's what's going on today. And we the people have got to stop this. We have to protect and defend America. We've got to protect and defend our president. We've got to protect and defend our U.S. senators. And we've got to protect and defend, elections, which the left is trying to always overrun and throw out. And also, by the way, people wonder, well, hey, you say you're pro-America, but you've also said America is going to collapse. America is going to collapse at some point financially. That's inevitable. But that's not the topic of today. You can't have unlimited debt spending forever and still maintain a sustainable economic system. But that's a different problem, and that may be many years away. That's not today's, well, I guess in a sense it is today's emergency, but there's a much greater emergency right now, which is that the left is trying to carry out this massive violent coup. So I'm going to go through the evidence of this so you can see for yourself. So first of all, you can go to the Daily Caller, that's dailycaller.com, and you can see the story about how yesterday, I'm filming this on Friday, yesterday when the Senate Judiciary Committee was debating the Brett Kavanaugh confirmation vote, somebody in the U.S. House of Representatives used a congressional computer to dox key conservative U.S. senators. And the senators that were doxed include Lindsey Graham, who gave a really powerful speech in the hearing yesterday. Lindsey Graham has emerged as really one of the heroes of all this, which is astonishing given that his nickname is Grahamnesty. He's been sort of pro-amnesty all these years, but whatever he's done in the past, he has sure been a hero to America these last few days with the Brett Kavanaugh hearing. I got to say, I'm impressed with Lindsey Graham and what he's said the last few days. But it's also Senator Mike Lee and Senator Orrin Hatch have been doxxed. And by being doxxed, what I mean is that their home addresses have been publicly released. And often their home phone numbers are released, or their personal cell phone numbers. And in some cases of doxing, they'll release someone's social security number or other personal details. Now, doxing a U.S. senator, this is being done by obviously leftists inside Congress. I don't mean a Congress person, but perhaps one of their staffers. Now, just to back up for a second, I happen to know that Senator Dianne Feinstein absolutely is a traitor against America. Her office ran a communist spy for 20 years. And that communist spy ran an operation that resulted in the communist Chinese government kidnapping and murdering human rights activists who went to Senator Feinstein's office to appeal for help. Senator Feinstein is, I've called her a demon. She is one of the most evil people, in my view, that still haunts the United States Senate. She is pure evil, and she's a deceiver, and she's a seditious traitor against America. And there's no question in my mind that Senator Feinstein is the one who leaked details to the press about Christine Blasey Ford. And I think that Dianne Feinstein roped Ford into testifying when Ford didn't want to. And Ford even told Senator Feinstein, I do not want this to go public. I do not want these details released. Feinstein dragged her into it by releasing what I believe was a false letter. In other words, a letter that claimed to be written by Christine Ford, but was not. Christine Ford is a PhD. She's a science writer, as I'm a science writer. And yet in that letter, there were so many juvenile mistakes, like eighth grade, maybe an eighth grade person might write a letter that badly. Wrong capitalization, wrong attribution of 1980s using an apostrophe S, weird word choice, capitalizing the word high school when it's not a proper noun. Other things, other classic mistakes in there that are made by newbie writers, but a PhD science writer like Christine Ford would never make. It's clear to me that she didn't write that letter. It's clear to me that Senator Dianne Feinstein's staffers wrote that letter, and that her staffers are really bad writers, by the way. I mean, it's so obvious to me. I guess if you don't have really good writing skills, you might not see that that's a really bad writing, really bad sample of writing in that letter from Christine Ford, but that's beside the point. Anyway, the doxing of these U.S. senators is part of an operation. Doxing allows the radical left-wing terrorist kill teams to know where the senators live. This is key to understand. So when Ted Cruz was confronted the other day, that was just yelling and screaming. And there's a lot of that going on right now, too. Left-wingers are yelling and screaming at senators in the halls of the Senate. And by the way, I recall CNN and everybody deplatforming Alex Jones because he yelled at, who's the guy, a CNN reporter, and he yelled at Senator Marco Rubio, Senator Rubio. And then he was deplatformed. But all these left-wing groups that are yelling at senators right now are being called heroes on CNN. So I guess if you yell at a Republican, Marco Rubio is a Republican, if you yell at a Republican and your name is Alex Jones, you get deplatformed. But if you yell at a Senate Judiciary Committee member and you are a liberal, then you're called a hero. So what's that all about? Just more nonsense about who's getting banned and who's getting censored. It's all BS. But the whole idea here of the doxing, and there's going to be more, trust me, is that these home addresses can be distributed to the left-wing kill teams. The kill teams, which, and I'll reveal to you some of their tweets here, some of their actual words, how they plan to operate. They're structured as terror cells. They're talking openly about which weapons to carry. They're talking about short-barreled AR-15s, short-barreled rifles and pistols, AK-47s, and some other weapons that I'll cover here that they talk about, and hiding weapons so that they can then achieve high kill rates at the spur of the moment when they encounter, big targets, i.e. senators, members of the U.S. Supreme Court, prominent conservative radio personalities, and so on. Now you understand, probably, by the way, why people like myself are armed 24/7. I have a concealed carry permit, and I've actually been granted concealed carry in 4 different U.S. states over the years. I've passed all the FBI background checks. I own Class 3 weapon accessories, such as suppressors. For example, I pass all the FBI background checks. I have 0 criminal record whatsoever. Never even had a speeding ticket in my life. I don't drink alcohol and so on. I got a super clean record. Never been arrested, nothing. And that's why I have FBI permission to have all of these weapons. Why do I have these weapons? For my own self-protection. Because I have been death threatened, as have other prominent people who are still fighting for America, fighting for our country, fighting for our Constitution, fighting to defend our president. When I say fighting, I mean debating. I mean talking publicly about this. Fighting in words. I run hundreds of different websites. I'm a very outspoken, obviously, individual, pro-freedom, pro-liberty, but I have been forced to become an expert in firearms and firearm tactics. I've trained with Navy SEALs. I've trained with U.S. Marines, trained with U.S. Army officers. I've trained with Marine Scout snipers. And maybe you don't want to hear all this, but I've had to become proficient in handgun combat, bilateral, left hand, right hand, dark, low light, whatever, it doesn't matter. I can take care of myself. And I've been trained in rifles. I've been trained in long range shooting. And why? Again, because I'm threatened constantly, and that threat is now spreading to, I believe now, they're going to be threatening U.S. senators, and they're going to be threatening Supreme Court justices and actually trying to kill them. The mass executions are probably going to begin. And this escalation toward that, it's being pushed by the mainstream media. The media that wants to end the Second Amendment so that no conservatives could even defend themselves. You see, first they strip you of your guns, and then they carry out the mass murder, and then they have a communist revolution, and they sweep into power, and they execute the president, and they proclaim a new utopia under, what do you know, it's Barack Obama president again. Well, we have something called the Second Amendment in America, and the Second Amendment is a national immune system against exactly that kind of tyranny. And this is why defending the Second Amendment is absolutely crucial to defending our nation, defending the integrity of our elections in this constitutional republic, but also defending ourselves individually against the kinds of threats that are now escalating by these radical left-wing individuals. So if these left-wing radicals, they try to come after prominent conservative people, there are a lot of conservatives who are very capable of defending themselves. And of course, they have every legal right to do so as well. And many of us are very well trained in self-defense. We've got to be prepared to defend ourselves against the violence that is spreading all across America. Now, here's what else is key. Most U.S. senators, I believe, are not prepared to defend themselves. And what you saw with Senator Ted Cruz at that restaurant was that he did not have security with him. This is astonishing to me. You've got senators out there, you've got Supreme Court members out there going to public restaurants and going to maybe movie theaters or I don't know, theaters, opera theaters, or what have you. And they're not protected. This vulnerability will no doubt be taken advantage of by these radical leftists who are trying to now run kill teams and assassinate prominent members of the U.S. Senate. In addition to the doxing that has taken place through the U.S. House of Representatives computer, we also know, thanks to Project Veritas videos, that there are deep state members embedded inside the DOJ, even the FBI, and other government agencies such as the IRS that are abusing their positions of power to use government computers to dox their intended political targets. There was a woman, I forgot her name, but this was written up. This was part of the Project Veritas video. A woman who was caught on camera working for the DOJ. She was caught on camera in a basement of a church, plotting her Democrat Socialists of America, DSA, campaign, and using government computers inside the DOJ to dox her intended political targets. So she would use the computers there to find the home addresses of prominent conservatives that they want to target. And then she would spread that information to her fellow DSA terror groups, who would then stalk that person's home and run intimidation campaigns, which will, of course, one day soon probably escalate into late-night kill teams. The tactics of these people, their tactics would be, of course, to know all the home addresses and to have kill lists, which, according to my knowledge and what I've been told by other people I'm not going to go into, those kill lists have already been distributed to certain kill teams, and there's going to be a so-called, quote, activation day. I don't know what day that is. I can't 100% verify all of this, but there's going to be, I'm told, an activation day. And on the activation day, certain terror cells and certain teams are told to go to this address and kill that family. Not just to kill the senator, but to kill the family. They're going to try to kill Brett Kavanaugh. You see, if Brett Kavanaugh gets confirmed in the overall Senate floor vote, he's already been confirmed by the Judiciary Committee, but if he gets confirmed by the Senate floor vote, they will try to murder him. And the reason I'm saying this so blatantly is because I'm begging Brett Kavanaugh to get security, get a guard. I mean, a couple of guards. You have got to protect yourself, and it's not just him. It's Clarence Thomas. It's senators like Ted Cruz and others who you people, you're vulnerable. And I'm not sure, maybe you do realize, but the radical left has become so deranged and so insane, so militant at this point that they are now on Twitter openly. I'm going to talk about this, openly talking about their kill team strategies and how they're going to run terror cells and how they're going to hide weapons and then spring it on you in public and kill you. And it's not very much of a leap for them to start running suicide teams. And by suicide teams, what I mean is a suicide team is a group of fanatical left-wing activists who decide that they are willing to die to carry out these assassinations. Now, when you have somebody who's willing to die to carry out an assassination like that, it is almost impossible to stop them from a security point of view. For example, if someone is willing to die to try to kill Senator Ted Cruz, I'm using his name again because of that restaurant in D.C., that event, they could have done it that night. They could have stabbed him. They could have shot him, even knowing that they might be shot in response. But if they're willing to die, then they don't have to be cautious. They can carry out these killings, and then they would be no doubt written up as a hero by the Huffington Post or the New York Times or the Washington Post, which would start running hero columns for all the suicide killers who are running around killing conservative senators. I mean, make no mistake. The left-wing media they love the idea of radical left-wing terrorists killing U.S. senators who are conservatives. They would cheer it. They would absolutely cheer it. It's clear at this point. It's not an exaggeration. The Huffington Post would celebrate it. I mean, they celebrate people who call for the murder of President Trump. This is routine now, and Twitter doesn't ban those accounts, and Facebook doesn't ban those accounts at all. So the tech giants, the left-wing media, and the deep state anti-Trump resistors inside government, they're all working together. It doesn't mean they all have one email list or something, but they all have the same vision and the same understanding of murdering conservative senators and trying to murder the president, as they've called for over and over again, and trying to murder Supreme Court justices and so on. So they are acting independently. They're almost structured like terror cells. They don't need orders from headquarters to carry out their terror. They're doing this on their own. And Project Veritas has uncovered a lot of this. These deep state traitors are acting on their own. They're not taking orders from anyone that we know of. They have just independently organized and decided that they're going to start mass murdering people when the activation day comes, whatever day that is. And then we've got these Antifa groups, right? Antifa, a domestic terrorism left-wing group with they're in cities all across America. And there are others, I think in Austin, Texas, we have a group called I think they're called the Red Knights or the Red Guard or something. Obviously a bunch of communists running around with Lenin t-shirts, and they can't wait to wage a communist revolution takeover. And it's going to be, of course, fascinating when they discover that they're surrounded by patriotic Texans who all know how to shoot, but they haven't figured that out yet. And they think because they can do a grand total of 3 sit-ups and 2 push-ups that they're physically ready for a revolution, that, they're going to discover something interesting about real Texans when that day comes. By the way, I'll just leave that for later. Real Texans who are, like I'm doing, like chucking bales of hay into a truck, and then fixing my John Deere tractor. I take care of donkeys and goats, and I've got free-range chickens on my ranch, and I do real ranching out here in Central Texas. And when you're a rancher, do you know you get really good grip strength? Your hands get really, really strong. You can grip things. You don't have to go to a gym to work out because you're working out every day anyway. You're carrying, 50-pound bags of grain. You're moving buckets. You're working with tools. You get strong. And then you combine that with firearms training. Guess what? You got a real Texan on your hands now. And Austin is surrounded by reality. And reality is real Texas. And if these radical left-wing terrorists in Austin think that they're going to get any traction outside of Austin, they got another thing coming. I know a guy who's, I don't know how much I should say here, but I'll just say, with all the veterans and cops that I know, any effort by Antifa terrorists and communists in Austin to try to take over Texas, I'll just say it's going to be stopped so quickly that they won't even know what happened. And they will be, I've been told, they will be cleaned out. They will be cleaned out. So and I'm not advocating this, I'm not calling for it. This is not me saying this, but I've been told that if Antifa starts some kind of a civil war activity in Austin, Texas, or perhaps in any other city, but I've been told specifically about Austin, that the response will absolutely eliminate them. So that's what I've been told, just passing that along to you. Not me advocating it, but, hey, if they start a civil war, what do they think is going to happen? What do they think is going to happen? There's going to be a response from patriotic Americans. There's going to be a response. And that response will be, you can figure it out. All of you who are veterans, you know exactly what I'm talking about. All right. Why are all these Antifa terrorists, these young white liberals, by the way? What is it with these delusional white liberals? And they think they're ninjas. They think they're badasses. And they think they can go overtake the whole country. And I've seen their shooting training videos, and they can barely shoot paper targets at 20 yards with an AR-15. It's like, that's a pistol shot right there. With your AR, you should be able to hit 300 yards with iron sights, but you can't even hit a 20-yard paper target with your red dot sight on your AR. You know what? Quick answer, by the way, to all patriots watching this. If this happens and you need to defend your country and defend your community and defend your life, all you got to do is outrange the communists. Just outrange them. They can't hit anything beyond about 50 yards. Just outrange them. That's it, mission accomplished. So PJ Media has done an extensive investigation on this, and they've discovered these Twitter accounts that are openly talking about all of this. And one of these people is called Dr. Bones, and he's the co-host of what's called a far left podcast called The Guillotine. And he apparently has got 5,000 plus Twitter followers, and he's got 15,000 plus Facebook followers. And of course, he's never censored by Facebook or Twitter, so he gets to reach all of them. Whereas I've got 2.5 million Facebook followers, and if I put out an article, it goes to like 300 people. That's it, because I'm totally shadow banned by Facebook by design. But he goes out and says, hey, quick question for all my military-minded lefties. Should leftists train or organize in an insurgent focus where they blend into civilian populations for potential attacks, or a more militia structure focused on holding and maintaining turf? And then his followers go on to describe their tactics. And they're talking about this on Twitter. And they're talking about organize as hidden cells, unknown even to the population, so they can blend in among you. Accept the territory may be grabbed by larger right-leaning forces, but bleed them dry once they take control. This is one of the tweets. Bleed them dry. Instead of a full-size AR, they say, which is a pretty GD obvious, I'm thinking of having people prioritize compact and easily concealable platforms, they write. Something you could keep under a jacket and never tip anyone off to. There's another follower who says, quote, having a common language and tactics is unbelievably important in future situations where your 5-person cell, he's talking about a terror cell, has an opportunity for a big kill and can group up with 4 other cells to get the needed firepower. So they're talking about a 20-person squad, essentially, to go in and get the big kills. Or who are the big kills? Senators, members of the Supreme Court, people like Trump, or prominent conservative, radio DJs and so on. So they go on to say a militia that functions as independent cells is really the ideal. Then there's another user who's part of this group, says, like a Boy Scout, be prepared. And he goes on the list: pistol, shotgun, pistol caliber SBR, rifle caliber SBR. SBR means short-barreled rifle. By the way, it's a Class 3 weapon. You have to have ATF permission to have an SBR. SBRs are relatively easy to hide, because they're short barrels. You can have like a 7.5-inch barrel. And this gets to my point, by the way, about outranging these people. Short-barreled rifles have very low muzzle velocity and very low accuracy. You really can't trust an SBR to do anything beyond 100 yards, really. I mean, you might get lucky and just spray and pray, but you're not going to be able to tactically hit things where a disciplined person, i.e. a patriot, a veteran, maybe even a law enforcement officer or a trained civilian like myself, we could sit back at 200 or 300 yards quite readily and pick off these terrorists one by one shot at a time using a simple AR-15. Not to mention even having like a 308 rifle or a 6.5 Creedmoor or a 300 Win Mag or a 338 Lapua Magnum. There are a lot of options there for patriots who want to defend their nation. But these people, these leftists they're openly talking about carrying SBRs so they can hide them under their clothes and they can move throughout the population and then activate at a moment's notice and attack with a 20-man team and try to attack an intended target. And this is why, I saw Alex Jones the other day. He was doing a public speech, a public thing, like a Free Alex Jones rally. And I've even expressed this to him personally. I think you're going to have to stop showing up in public because it's too dangerous. Because you've got these left-wing groups now. They could blend into the crowd, right? And I looked at the security situation there on video. I wasn't there for other reasons. But I saw that there were one, maybe two Capitol Guardsmen guys. I don't know what they are. Are they sheriff's deputies or, I don't know, state Capitol Guards? I don't know. But maybe one or two of those guys. There might have been another plainclothes person. So maybe, let's say 3-4 guys max there to defend Alex Jones. Maybe he had undercover security. I don't know if he did. He didn't tell me. I mean, why would he? You got to keep those things secret. But a 20-man terrorist team could very quickly overpower 3 or 4 guards and take out Alex Jones. And no doubt that's one of their goals. And they would try to do that to myself as well. And this is one of the reasons why I don't speak in public anymore. Because I can't monitor the crowd when I'm speaking. I got to have other people monitor the crowd. I have hired bodyguards in the past, and they've done a great job. Obviously, I'm still here. You can wear ballistic vests if you want. I've done that before. But ultimately, somebody can take a shot at you if you're out in public, especially at a pre-assigned place or a pre-announced place. So I am very concerned. And even though I have my pistol on me all the time, I would be responding with the pistol. And you may not get a response. If they shoot first and they hit you in the neck or something, just a lucky shot, it's over. So, conservatives have to really start thinking about security in a whole different way. And that includes senators, by the way, and that includes members of Congress, because look, I mean, these radical left-wing terrorist groups, they're openly talking about SBRs here. What I would say to patriots and individuals is where it is legal, it's very important that you carry not just a pistol on you. I always have my Glock, and I've got sights for shooting at night or daytime. But it's important to have a rifle if it's legal in your vehicle. Police officers carry rifles all the time for this purpose, and I think that every patriot, especially those who are on the target list, need to carry a rifle in their vehicle. Again, follow local laws, keep it legal. If it's an SBR, I don't think you can carry an SBR in your car, by the way, without ATF permission. I don't think you just drive around with an SBR. I think you have to fill out a form with the ATF even to relocate an SBR. But just pick a legal rifle and carry it in your vehicle. And, of course, hide it. You don't want people breaking in to steal your rifle. So conceal it. Things are getting very dicey out there to the point where all of us who are intended targets, we need to be able to respond very quickly and defend ourselves against, these attacking individuals. And never forget, by the way, that leftist people, because they're not only evil, but they're largely very stupid, They think that car doors block bullets, so perhaps you can use that to your advantage when you're shooting back, obviously. I mean, they believe everything that Hollywood shows you about guns, and Hollywood knows nothing about guns, nothing whatsoever. So, hey, if they think car doors block bullets and they're hiding behind car doors, you know what? The answer is obvious. Then there's another guy called Captain Howdy. Username is Jack Herrer 20. That has been exposed by PJ Media before, and wow, he talks about sustaining a full militia, the supply chains. Wait a minute, this is a different user. A bureaucratic information dispersion. They're talking about recruiting people into the ranks, getting people involved, making sure that their whole family will face as little risk as possible, and that they have to sustain outward civilian life in order to hide themselves in society while they're running the kill teams. And they talk about all of these resistance tactics where they need to, during the day, they have to fake like they're honest, peaceful, loving civilians. And then at other times, they're running kill teams to kill or terrorize or wound or wipe out families of conservatives. This is being just openly talked about. Now, PJ Media covered the story. Daily Caller has covered the story. Project Veritas has uncovered the videos. The escalation is happening. I've already gone through that. To wrap this up, here's what you need to know. Now, Alex Jones and I both have accurately predicted this escalating civil war. We've been warning about it for several years. I warned about it in 2016. I warned about it with the Trump inauguration. I've been warning about this for a couple of years. And what's become clear to me is that as the left loses more and more political power, they're losing the Supreme Court with the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh and perhaps the confirmation. They've lost the White House, obviously, with President Trump winning the 2016 election. They lost the House and they lost the Senate. Now, there's a midterm election coming up. They may retake the House, and some of them think they could retake the Senate, but I think that's doubtful. Here's the thing. The more political power they lose, the more they're turning to militant, violent, radical tactics. And I have publicly predicted many times that there are going to be bombings of government buildings. We're talking about like the underground weatherman type of activities. I think that was from the 1970s, wasn't it? Bill Ayers and others, terror groups that were running against the government back then. They were bombing government buildings, and they were talking about mass murder. They were talking about eliminating 25 million Americans, I think, at that time. And the U.S. population is much larger now. So have no illusions. The left would execute tens of millions of Americans if they got power. And the way they plan to get power is to unleash mass assassinations, mass executions of certain political targets, such as U.S. senators, as I've mentioned. And also prominent radio hosts and online personalities who they think they can destroy and silence. At the same time, the tech giants will continue to deplatform and silence all conservatives, and the left-wing media will continue to run fake news, working with the deep state, and even China has influence over Apple now and over the tech companies. So we're talking about, really, it's an international conspiracy to overrun America and destroy America and replace it with a radical left-wing authoritarian regime, most likely modeled after Marxism, or perhaps communism, or some weird twisted combination of the two. We're talking about the rise of the Fourth Reich in America, with everything, with the mass executions, a whole new Holocaust, a Holocaust against Christians, against conservatives, the mass murder of tens of millions of people. I mean, you talk about a whole new Holocaust. This is what's coming. Now, if the left wins the midterm elections and starts to gain political power, then that might delay this whole timeline. They might feel like, well, there's hope in the political process. So maybe they don't have to invoke the activation day and just go all out with their attempted bloody coup. So in a sense, if Democrats lose the midterms and they don't take the House, that also means that this will probably exacerbate the frustration and the desperation on the part of these leftists to escalate their violent attacks. And I would expect that if they, well, the timeline is, if Brett Kavanaugh gets confirmed to the U.S. Supreme Court and he gets seated on the U.S. Supreme Court, and then the Democrats do not win the midterm elections and do not control the House, then we're going to see a massive, massive escalation of violence on the part of the left, followed by, I believe, essentially a response from the Trump administration will be declarations of martial law in certain cities to stop the violence. And I've spoken about this martial law scenario before. I probably didn't describe it well the first time I spoke about it. I was criticized on this point by some patriots. But my point is that the martial law is a response to the violence of the leftists, and that you will beg for martial law. That's a quote I've been repeating. It will get so bad, there'll be so much violence in the streets of America that you will beg for martial law, and you will be happy to support this temporary martial law just to restore civility so you can go down the street and go to the grocery store or buy gas or take your children to school. You know what I'm saying? The violence can become so severe that you will beg for martial law. That's all I'm saying. And if that happens, we should support that effort to restore civility and law and order in our cities. That's really important. But that's a worst case scenario. If the Democrats gain control of the House in November, then I think that worst case won't happen, because I think Democrats will perceive themselves as maybe there's hope that they could win the White House in 2020. So they will fight for that. And it's going to be a 2-year effort to try to take back the White House in 2020, a very, very vicious campaign. More efforts to try to destroy President Trump and smear him, more media complicity in spreading lies and pushing out whoever their chosen candidate is for 2020. And there's going to be massive vote fraud. There's going to be massive, illegals voting and voter registration fraud all across America, black box elections, the whole deal. But there may not be as much violence in the streets at that point, because they think that maybe they have a chance at the White House in 2020. So there are a lot of ifs here. But the two key decisions or events that I see taking place are, number one, whether or not Brett Kavanaugh gets confirmed to the U.S. Supreme Court. If he does, the left goes more insane. And then secondly, whether the Democrats take the House in the midterm elections. If they fail to take the House, then there's even more radicalization of the left, because at that point they feel like they're losing everything. They've lost the Supreme Court, they've lost the White House, they've lost the Senate, and then they've lost the House again. And they will go ballistic at that point, which means that over the next few months, things could get very dicey in that scenario, and they could really, really escalate in terms of violence in the streets. Demand civility and peace and lawfulness. The left wants to turn America into a lawless, chaotic war zone, a literal war zone. This is what they want. Chaos benefits the party that's out of power. And they want chaos. And ultimately, and I've spoken about this before, they want to have so much chaos happening that they call for the United Nations to show up with their, quote, peacekeepers. And then the United Nations would call for the complete disarmament of all Americans under the excuse that, there's too many shootings going on. Well, it's the left that's doing the shootings, number one, and it's the patriot conservatives that need to stop them. And so, no, we're not going to give up our guns to the United Nations. That's for damn sure. Don't even try that in Texas. You want to see an uprising? Oh, man. You bring in UN troops and say give up your guns all across America? No, not going to work. But they'll try it. They'll try it, and then what they'll do is they'll stage attacks on the United Nations troops, and then they'll say that the patriots that support Trump are the terrorists. And meanwhile, and this is all going to be reported by the New York Times and Washington Post, the Trump-supporting patriots are terrorists. Look, they murdered UN troops. Well, no, they didn't murder UN troops. UN troops came to their door to take their weapons, and the Texans fought back. And what do you know? There's 15 dead UN troops on their front lawn. Go figure. That's not terrorism. That's self-defense. So if that starts to happen, then it's anybody's guess where this goes. It's going to be, then it's an international incident. It's a massive civil war. There could be elements of martial law. You're not going to be able to buy ammo at that point. You're not going to be able to buy firearms. Everything's going to be sold out, gone, or locked down, what have you. There's going to be Antifa cells activating all over the place, coming to your house, trying to murder you if you're a senator, or if you're a member of Congress, or if you're, Sean Hannity for that matter. And now Sean Hannity can take care of himself in fights, by the way. He's been training for several years. Good on Sean Hannity. But I don't know about Rush Limbaugh and others. Do they have armed guards? Do they have any familiarity with firearms? Can they defend themselves? I don't know. I tell you what, anybody that comes here and tries to go after me, they're going to pay a very heavy price. I'm not going to go into details. I'll just say that if these left-wing terrorist groups go after certain individuals like myself or Sean Hannity or others who have been trained, they're going to have to bring a freaking army, and they're going to take a lot of casualties. And they may ultimately kill somebody, their intended target, but it's going to be a lot of cleanup for them. I'll give you that, because at that point, you're fighting for your life. You don't hold back. You're not trying to be politically correct. You're putting rounds on target. That's it. That's all you're doing. And you know what? And that's when your 10,000 hours of training kicks in. You're putting rounds on target. You're moving. You're shooting. You're reloading. You're doing what you've been trained to do without even thinking about it. If that day comes, so be it. But the left, I think, has a misconception about their own effectiveness and their own training. They think they're badasses when they aren't. So even though it's going to be a very bad idea for them to try to launch this kind of national takeover and coup and blood in the streets and everything, it's going to be a very bad idea. They're going to be defeated so quickly, but they don't know that. They think, they believe their own hype. They believe what the media is telling them. They think all of America is with them. No, America thinks they're lunatics. America wants to stop them. And America is capable of stopping them. It's the police officers and the sheriff's deputies, and frankly, it's the plumbers and, the construction workers too. I talk to construction workers all the time. They all carry guns. You know what I mean? Everybody I talk to in Texas has a gun, and they know how to use it. And then a lot of them are hunters, which means they're hitting deer or whatever they're hunting at, 200 to 500 yards quite easily. And that's a normal thing in Texas. And plus, they're shooting hogs all the time. They're taking out hogs every day all over Texas, all year round. There's no hunting season on hogs. It's open season every day. People shooting hogs all the time. There is a wild hog problem, overrunning Texas. You may have heard something about that. I've seen them myself. I don't personally shoot them because I focus on shooting steel targets and such. But my dogs have gone after and eaten quite a few of them. I'll give you that. They have a little bacon feast from time to time. Bottom line is, folks, you need to be prepared. These are serious things that are unfolding before our eyes here. And my warning to you is very genuine. It's very, very serious. And, I'm probably taking some risk to come out and say all of this. Maybe I'll be at the top of their target list. All I say, they better bring a freaking army, because I'm going to fight back. And there's a lot of people who are going to fight back, actually tens of millions. So it will be, history is unfolding. It's going to be somewhat fascinating to see how this does unfold. And the more radical the left becomes, I think the bigger the political backlash against them. So I think that voters are going to vote more and more Republican at this point. And they're going to punish the Democrats at the ballot box. And that is going to drive the Democrats into more and more desperation and insanity. And then the backlash against that will cause even more people to leave the Democrat Party, walk away, and they'll vote for more conservatives. And so the Democrat Party could actually become obsolete through several cycles of this over the next 10 years. The Democrat Party has lost all credibility among rational people. The Democrat Party will soon become synonymous with left-wing terrorism. The Democrat Party has already been exposed as traitors and criminal felons who committed obstruction of justice and voter fraud. And, they even cheated Bernie Sanders out of the nomination. He probably would have won that nomination if it was a fair deal. And he might have even beat Donald Trump in the general election. We could be under President Sanders today if not for the criminality and fraud of Hillary Clinton and her team. Think about that. That's how astonishing things are these days. But the left will become more and more radical and more dangerous during all of this. And that means that those of us who despise their brand of lawlessness and insanity, we need to, number one, be prepared for self-defense, legally own firearms and get trained how to use them in your self-defense to defend your neighborhood, your community, work in conjunction with your local law enforcement if that's an acceptable option locally. Be prepared to defend yourself, your community, and your nation and your president if it comes to that. So that's the first thing. Second thing is you need to be a prepper, I believe, as well, because if this unfolds, there are going to be serious disruptions in supplies, such as, of course, food deliveries, fuel deliveries, ammunition, even bottled water and all the things, medicine, antibiotics, insulin, these types of things. So it is a rational response right now to start stocking up and to be ready for disruptions to take place. It's a rational response. In fact, every person that I know is either already a prepper or is rapidly becoming a prepper. I mean, it's, if you're not ready, you can really be hurt by these things as society runs out of supplies. Be ready for what's coming, because it could get hectic very, very quickly. It could become chaos, and you could find yourself in a very desperate situation. And as the survivors of places like Kosovo, the Kosovo War in the late 1990s, we did an article on that recently. The survivors of Kosovo will tell you that one day they were in a perfectly rational, first-rate society, and almost overnight, it seems, they were in a freaking war, complete with death squads and mass executions and crimes, ethnic cleansing crimes and things going on. And they, what they wish they had more of was antiseptics, which are bacteria-killing solutions to keep your areas clean, and toilet paper and soap, things like that, just the basics. I mean, you look at survivors who've gone through that, and they'll tell you, you will wish you had more toilet paper. You will wish you had just freaking bleach, You wish you had soap. Because right now, most Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, and they don't have any extra food. They don't have anything to back up their life. If something goes wrong, they're in a world of hurt. Don't be that person. And lastly, some information sources to give you where you can go to stay up to date on this. I'll give you 3 websites here. Censored.news, that's a site that we publish. It's an aggregation of real-time headlines from the top independent media websites that are all censored by Google News. So this is an alternative to Google News. It's called Censored.news. You can go there, check it out. It's a great way to start your day. And it's updated in real time throughout the day. Also, the alternative to YouTube is Real.video. Real.video is an alternative to YouTube, and there you can find a lot of news and analysis posted every hour. Just go to Real.video. You're going to find a lot of news there that's censored on YouTube. And then, finally, you can also go to goodgopher.com. It's a search engine that we built to allow you to search the independent media. And we spider thousands of websites there, independent media websites. So just go to goodgopher.com, and you can search the indie media on any topic that interests you. You'll get a more truthful analysis of news there compared to the lying left-wing media, which is, of course, the enemy of America at this point. So check out all of those websites, and you can see more of my videos here at counterthink.com, where you can read my primary website, naturalnews.com. I'll end this by saying, God bless America. I pray for your safety. I pray for the protection and defense of this nation. I pray that we can defend our president, we can defend our constitutional republic, we can defend our own safety, and we can defend our nation against these very, very dangerous anti-American terrorists who are trying to take it over. And with that said, I'll just say, look, I'm a Christian, I'm a Texan, I'm an American, I'm pro-Second Amendment, I'm pro-President Trump, I'm pro-health freedom, I'm pro-natural medicine. I'm a food scientist, and that's one day what I'd like to focus on if I get a chance, but we got to save our country first. Then maybe I can get back into the lab and just start working on food science, in retirement or whatever, who knows. But thank you for watching. Share this video. Be safe. Get prepared. Is no joke. You better get moving on this. Thank you.